Tisha Sanders Jones.
Present.
Ethan Reed.
Present.
Drew Spurgers.
Present.
Larry Webb. And Greg West.
Present.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. The minutes were sent to us by email. Just need a
Motion to
motion to
approve?
approve, please.
Seconded.
Motion by Drew, second by Alexander. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Yeah, first public hearing item is for a request for a conditional use permit to allow publicly owned service facility and utility facility in A1 zoning district for property located at 1320 South German Lane.
Yes, this was tabled previously, so we were working with the applicant to work out all of the conditions. This is being brought forward by Conway Corporation for their new service facility on South German. They're proposing to move from the existing service facility on South Harkrider. The property is zoned A1. We anticipate traffic for this use to be somewhat, I would say, moderate or minimal, with probably around 300 to 500 vehicle trips per day, which wouldn't have a significant impact on South German with 5,500 currently. There are portions of the site that fall within the floodplain and the floodway. This portion of the site is a part of a much larger portion of the site that extends back to the east and down to the south as well. The applicant has stated the following intentions for the site: an office building, warehouse, vehicle maintenance facility, along with material storage and covered parking on site that will include the engineering, electrical, water, wastewater, and telecom crews. Facility would be open all year, weekdays from 8 to 5. Operation crews would be primarily on site from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Dispatch would be occupied 24 hours a day all year with 1 to 2 staff at all times. And there are approximately 150 employees who will be on site at various times during normal business hours. And they anticipate 10 or less visitors to the facility on average. This is the type of facility has to go somewhere. And so, for utility facility, there's already sort of an agglomeration of some of these types of uses on this site currently. When staff reviewed this, the office uses, I think, will blend well. We're on the western side of the site with the more industrial yard type uses on the east side. That it kind of blends well with how that particular area of town reads. There's a proposed park to the west of this, so it'll provide a nice buffer between anything and any future adjacent residential that might develop out there in the future. And it would allow consolidation of utility facilities for Conway Corp. So these are yard sites that will, the existing yard sites will be allowed to transition to something else. Additionally, the site is indicated to be part of the route of the Northwest Trail, which will be part of the Central Arkansas Greenway that will extend all the way down to Little Rock. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit with the following conditions. I'll kind of go through these. Part of it is a 25-foot undisturbed vegetative buffer with the property to the north. So in various locations, the majority of the conditions for this site really pertain to fencing and buffering and vegetation in order to protect adjacent properties. So generally speaking, fencing that is towards the west or facing South German, that will be some form of decorative fence. And other areas of security fencing will be allowed with sort of 3-strand barbed wire. In those areas, there will be a 25-foot vegetative buffer to the adjacent property or buffer from the view of right-of-way. In a lot of those areas, it may be that there's some existing vegetation that's already there that allows for that it would just basically, the fence would be inset about 25 feet. In other areas, there's going to be required planting. So these conditions allow for the planning director to set some of those requirements as it goes through site development review to make sure that everything is properly buffered and screened. That covers, I think, the top four. There's a requirement that Conway Court would provide an easement, a platted easement or separate instrument to provide for right-of-way easement for the future Northwest Trail that will traverse the property. The site will be subject to development review in accordance with Article 1101. The property will be required to be platted. So there's portions of this that will be required to be platted. There are portions of it that won't be required to be platted because they won't be subject. They won't fall under the jurisdiction of the subdivision code because the lot size will be larger. But the portions that are developed will be. And then the conditional use permit would expire if it's not commenced within 18 months. Essentially, staff would have the ability to extend that approval an additional 18 months beyond that. So that is the staff recommendation. Any questions? All right.
Anyone here to speak in favor of this project?
I'm Joanna Napoltz, 1335 Brookfield. And yes, we have read and worked with James to come up with a plan for the fencing and screening, and we agree with all of this.
Yep.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor? You don't have to.
Frank Shaw, 1315 Main Street. I'm an adjoining property owner to this property, and I support the request that they have tonight in that area. I think it's suitable. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone to speak in opposition? We'll bring it back into commission. Questions? Any discussion needed?
I move to accept the staff recommendation to approve the conditional use with conditions indicated in the staff report on the basis that the use is largely consistent with the comprehensive plan and the external impacts of the use can be adequately mitigated to protect adjacent property.
I'll second.
These are the best motions.
I worked really hard on that.
I have a motion by Drew and a
Thank
second
you,
by
Laura and or
Letitia.
Beth, whoever.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Okay. Our next item is a request for conditional use permit for a public, our next item is to request an annex of 32.24 acres as R1 south of Empty Trail and Orchard Hill Phase 2.
Yes. So you all have seen this site before. This property has previously gone through platting and is Orchard Hill subdivision phase 3. It's gone through preliminary plat and final plat, and now the property owner is requesting to annex this into the city, and that for an intention of providing services, urban services to the property. They're requesting that it be zoned R1. Staff concurs with this request that it is appropriate to the zone for the property. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. We don't see that the request would have minimal impact on traffic within the area. Wouldn't have a lot of issue there. It complies with the requirements of Ordinance 2277, specifying procedures for annexation. All departments recommend annexation for this property, and so staff recommends annexation. Any questions?
Is that Empty Trail? or-
Empty.
Empty.
It's empty. Okay, it is empty. Okay.
Is there a reason the requests are broken up in two different sections? Just out of curiosity.
You could probably ask the applicant.
It doesn't matter.
Part of it
just
is
curious.
there's certain requirements that the timing of which when they go through the process in this manner is more beneficial to the applicant.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mr. Shaw.
I was just warming up a little
Oh, great.
Frank Shaw, 1315 Main Street, and this is my request to annex these 32.24 acres. It's 31 lots. It is Phase 3 of Orchard Hill. It is virtually completed. Asphalt and everything is down, and we haven't pulled the power yet, but that's all that's lacking. So if you haven't been out there, go look. It's really a pretty piece of property. This is the 5th or 6th parcel that I've annexed on Impey Trail coming from east going west, and then there'll be some more that we'll annex in the springtime adjoining this. We're just moving in kind of an orderly fashion, sometimes 30, sometimes 50, 60 acres, but that's our project, and that's where we are on it. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor of this project? Anyone to speak in opposition? There are none, we'll bring it back into commission. Commissioners?
I make a motion to approve the request with staff recommendations.
Second.
A motion by Alexander, a second by Ethan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Okay, our next item is a request to rezone 36.45 acres located at South Country Club Road and north of Dave Ward Drive, including 633 South Country Club Road and 3285 Sturmer Lane from O1 to S1.
Yes. Okay. The applicant is requesting to rezone the 36.45 acres, which represents a portion of their property there, bound by Country Club Road to the east and Sturmer to the north, and then Diane Lane to the west. This is the New Life Church campus property, the Conway property, and the rezoning request includes the main church building and the supporting accessory structures, along with a single-family residence located at 3285 Sturmer Road. The property is currently developed and used as a church, a child care facility, a college, and a small amount of student housing. The comprehensive plan designates the site as transition, which is an area identified as appropriate for more intense uses along major roadways, but also requiring site development review to ensure compatibility with surrounding uses. The site is presently zoned O1, and while this zoning does allow most of the established uses by right, both a child care facility and the student housing component are only allowed conditionally. After talking with the applicant, it was decided that seeking a rezoning in lieu of multiple conditional uses to clean that up was the preferable way to proceed to bring the site into conformance. And that's good because the S1 zoning district, which is institutional, is specifically designed for developments like schools and churches and hospitals and so forth. All of the established uses are permitted by right in S1, along with some of the potential future uses, or all of the potential future uses that the applicant identified in our conversations. As the site is presently developed and operational, there's no significant increase in traffic anticipated, and it's rather difficult to estimate traffic impact for future phases of development without specific projects identified. But a couple of factors there. Development potential will be somewhat limited as a portion of this property is in the floodplain, so that will dictate some development. The Dave Ward Drive Access Management Plan may also come into play as far as how traffic enters and leaves the site. And additionally, all future development would be subject to site development review. So we would be able to address all of that. A portion of the site is currently subject to a conditional use permit 1154, which has nothing to do with the child care or anything. It's specifically related to restricted retail, and it was issued in 2001. But nothing has ever been developed specifically related to that. And again, it's only the southern portion of this property is affected by that conditional use permit. With the change in zoning, though, that conditional use permit would be revoked in accordance with the zoning code. Staff does recommend approval of the request as it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Will bring the site into conformance and will allow for appropriate future development. Any questions?
Just one. How does this interact with the next item? So why does the church need to rezone here?
They have a couple of uses that are established, the child care facility and the student housing component, which are not allowed in O1 by right. So we needed in an effort to bring the site into conformance, we either needed to seek conditional use permits for that as they begin to look at future development in addition to what's there. So we need to bring the site into conformance or seek a rezoning. So everything that they've identified that they want to do that's related to education or a worship facility or anything like that, student housing, all of that is allowed by right in the institutional zoning. So that's the way we opted to go. Everything will be subject to site development review. So that was just, it was a more comprehensive way to clean, I don't want to say clean the site up, but bring the
No.
site into conformance.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, and this is separate from the next.
Pure
request.
coincidence.
I think the next requests probably were on the table, and that brought about conversations about this site. I don't know that one caused the other, though,
Understood.
but I think it was just a good opportunity.
Okay, so New Life here is just looking to clean up and be in conformance.
And I hate to use the words clean up, but
Well,
yes, but
we
bring their
discussed
site
that a
into
lot last couple
conformance. Right,
meetings of-
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly,
Okay.
yes. Mhm.
Thank you.
Others?
No, thank you. Anyone here to speak in favor of this project? Your name and address, please.
Seth Jeffrey, and I actually live in Greenbrier, so I'll give you the church's address, 633 South Country Club.
Jeffrey.
I'm sorry?
Jeffried?
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey.
So the conversation with Lauren around the same time as the next issue realized that one of our conditional uses was about to be revoked. We transitioned our preschool out of our main church corporation because that preschool has grown to 5 locations around the state. It was cleaning up our own organizations. Well, then we stepped out of conformance with our conditional use. And so in conversations with Lauren, it was just like, well, what works? And I had initially said, well, would C3 be a better thing? And she was like, no, but S1 might. And so just conversations with the staff made it seem like that might be the best use. We do have some future plans that are on the table, that college was already mentioned and things like that. So it just seemed like it was a lot easier. And again, in that same conversation, she was mentioning some properties in the town that might have 3 and 4 conditional uses. And I was like, that just seems like a pain, to be honest. So it seemed like this would be the best way to make that right.
Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition of? If no one, we'll bring it into commission. Commissioners. Any questions, discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to accept the request to rezone to S1.
Second.
Adam and Drew, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Okay, our next item is a request for a conditional use permit to allow duplex 2 family dwelling in a C2 zoning district for property located at 2000 Meadow Lake Road.
Yeah, so this project came to staff as a result of, we were made aware by improvements to the site by the permitting department, which triggered review for us. Initially, the applicant, I think, was intending to use this as office space, and then because of various code requirements, sort of shifted towards this becoming a duplex instead. So that facilitated the need, since this is zoned C2, particularly where the structure is located, the need for it to go through a conditional use permit because duplexes are conditional use within that zone. The proposed use of a duplex is less intense than a commercial use at the site, so that makes it appropriate. It's not likely that the use will have any negative impact on adjacent property. Our staff recommendations for this are approval for the use, that the permitted use limited to be a 2-family residential or duplex. The standards and uses, other than those defined by the conditional use permit itself, would be restricted by the R2A zoning district. That only 1 driveway would be allowed on the site. There's currently existing 2 driveways. One was installed without permits. The parking area and driveway would be paved with a sealed surface and maintained to prevent dust resulting from continued use. Currently, there's gravel, quite a bit of gravel in the front yard. Those gravel areas that are outside of those areas to be paved and landscaping would then be removed with sod or landscaping to be installed. Any expansion would require development review approval. And then any change or expansion would also additionally require a separate conditional use permit. And no variances, which that's sort of standard language. And then the 18-month expiration is also standard language now that you all passed in the code. So with that, that's the staff recommendation. Are there any questions?
Anyone to speak in favor of this project?
Hi, Megan Weckworth. I'm with the Tyler Group, 240 Skyline Drive. I'm here speaking on behalf of Rhett Thompson. He's the applicant on the property. He owns the property. This duplex has been a rental property for them for a few years. The last renter they had really took a toll on the building, and so they've just been doing a lot of updates on it. And that's what they're trying to do. They agree with all of the staff recommendations. They'll work with staff on the parking area that needs to be paved, anything that needs to be removed, and so on and so forth. Any questions or anything?
No?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor of?
Jesse Thompson, 2010 Washington Avenue. This place has been, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Money Pit, but we started out, we had a guy over there that within 2 months kind of destroyed the place and littered everything out there. And we went in there with the idea of fixing the damage. Well, one thing led to another, and on and on and on, and we've ended up replacing nearly everything over there. But the one problem that I have with what's been proposed is this place had gravel all around it for years, or down the sides everywhere. And to sod any place out there is going to require digging out ground about that deep, because with all that gravel, it's been pressed in there for years and years and years. We've put decorative rock around the house because that was the easiest thing to do. It's a rental house, and nobody wants to mow a rent house, and it's hard to do when the surface out there was all rock. We tore up more than one mower over there over the years. So I think the rock and works best, and don't mind paving and putting a driveway and paving in there, but I don't really want to pave past that. There's about a 100-year oak tree right there, a year-old oak tree up there. And removing the gravel from there to the road and trying to put sod in there is just not going to really work, because that's why the place was gravel in the first place, because there's no grass that'll grow there. Now, you can put it there, but it's not going to stay there. So with that one proviso, I don't have a problem with doing what they're asking to do. But that's going to be pretty difficult, making grass grow on any part of that place. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I have a question. He does not agree with one of these conditions. Do we move on?
That is up to the commission to decide whether you want to pass it with that condition or not.
What'd you say, Ray?
Not agree with condition number 5.
Right.
So I was wondering, since staff made the recommendation, can we move forward since he doesn't? So we can. We'll vote either yeah or nay on it. Okay. All right. Thank you. Just need a clarification on that. Anyone else to speak in favor of? Anyone to speak in opposition? Okay, we'll bring it back into commission. Okay,
So James, the adjacent property all sodded. There's no properties next to it that have front yards as gravel.
No.
Okay.
And landscaping doesn't necessarily mean sod. It could be prostas, it could be mulch, it could be
anything gravel.
anything but gravel. Yeah.
Basically, scrape the gravel out of there.
Yeah, as long as it's landscaped, yeah.
Oh, like he'd be willing to attempt to plant grass, it's just not gonna grow, so.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Alex, a second by Drew. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Okay, our next item is a request to zone 5.56 acres plus or minus located at the northwest corner of the intersection of Dave Ward Drive and South Country Club Road from O1 to C2.
Yes. So we'll largely give one staff report for the next two items since they're practically identical. It's just that they are separate pieces of property. So these two requests are connected in the fact that they have the same applicant / authorized agent. However, they have sort of different property owners. So that's the reason that they're two separate items on this. This property is located on the northwest corner of Dave Ward Drive and South Country Club. It's presently zoned O1. The applicant is seeking to rezone this to C2. The area falls within the Dave Ward Drive Access Management Plan, and on the comprehensive plan, this area is indicated as transitional. The transitional sort of designation is largely along much of the Dave Ward corridor. The other major component along the Dave Ward corridor is that there are several different nodes that have been identified for commercial service or neighborhood commercial. This particular intersection is not identified as one of those commercial nodes. The idea in the development of Dave Ward Drive is that commercial would occur initially at those various nodes, and then eventually as market demand and those areas filled out, then you would start to see a transition from those areas out to some level of commercial. So that's why in this particular instance, we are recommending for commercial, whereas other times where it has been on the corridor, people said, well, there's C3 or there's C2 just down the road. Why are you recommending approval? It is because largely there's not a lot of sites that are this large, and we've largely filled up a lot of those different nodes, and this is a new node for commercial development. So the idea is that as Dave Ward, particularly on this west side, continues to develop out, it will develop out at commercial nodes where you have intersections with high access, which this is one of those. We anticipate that the traffic impact could be significant at the site. Trips would be distributed onto Dave Ward and South Country Club. The applicant's proposing a retail food store with the addition of an automobile service station. We anticipate that the estimated traffic counts generated from this would be about 4,000 vehicle trips per day. Currently on Dave Ward Drive, there's about 31,000 vehicles just east of the Ferris intersection. And then further north on Salem, nearest one up there, is about 12,000 vehicles per day. The site's not in any FEMA zones or floodplain zones. Utilities are available at the site, but the applicant would need to coordinate with Conway Corporation on extension. There are no improvements planned for either Country Club or Dave Ward Drive at this time, with this from the city standpoint. It is important to remember anytime that you grant a C2 use or a C3 use or any type of high intensity zone, that you're not just granting approval for the particular use that's coming before you, you're also granting approval for any other use that might be permissible in that zone. So other types of high intensity uses that could be possible at this site would include a eating place that's without drive-through service that would require a conditional use permit, childcare facility, or school facilities. In speaking with the applicant, we know that they intend to submit if this application passes, we know that they intend to submit a separate application for a conditional use permit for a fuel service station as part of that. Again, this is a this is really sort of one of the areas where C2 uses are intended. This is a very high traffic site where it's a sort of a key corridor. This is a type of use that is really, I think, needed within this portion of the community. There's not many other sites that are of this size with this level of access that could accommodate this type of use as well. So that is one reason that while this is not wholly consistent with the comprehensive plan, staff does feel that there are enough mitigating circumstances that we feel like this is would be an important use to have within this area and important to allow this particular zone. So staff recommendation is approval for this application as well as the sister application that comes with this. Is there any questions? It's on the south side of the street, and it's probably I'm not exactly sure.
It's not far, but it's
First
but it's
exit
not. This one's at an intersection, so that would benefit traffic.
Yeah, I think some of the key differences between this site and that site bordered some existing
Residential, exactly.
residential, had direct neighbors. This site borders an institutional use that's pretty substantial and pretty large. That site was a somewhat smaller site. This is a pretty large site that and I don't know that there would be a lot of other uses that you could use for this other than some type of institutional use or multifamily or some type of commercial. So
There seems to be a buffer with the adjacent property owner's parking lot anyway, so it doesn't seem like it's right up on, if I'm looking at that picture correct. And that, is that the church behind there?
it is.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
That's a single-family residence right across the street, I assume, right across Country Club.
It is to the east. Yes.
That's personal residence.
Oh, that was an office.
It's
in
used
there,
as
like
an
a
office.
council.
But it looks like, but it yes. It's a good way to say
Okay.
it maintains the character.
It's like a counseling clinic,
The
a vet
counseling
clinic.
center.
Yeah, it's
There's
There's a veterinarian
Restored
right down
Life.
from that. Yeah.
James?
He's talking about a
Look at the
cross-country
picture
club.
Oh,
back
on the
there.
other side.
Yeah, it's-
Directly to the,
yeah, it's Restored Life
East.
Counseling that's across Country Club. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the one on the corner though.
Are both of the-
restorative is behind, right?
yeah,
It's behind it.
the one on the
Is it-
corner is not a counseling.
I don't know the one on the corner. And then the other
Counseling center
was
is
a vet
kind of by
clinic.
where the South Country Club Road
Parts
is.
are.
Right
Right.
there.
And that northeast corner there is currently zoned O2 as well. Other questions?
Thank you. Anyone here to speak for approval of this request?
Hi, Sarah Hopper with Harps Food Stores, Springdale or Rogers, Arkansas. And we're the applicant for this site, and we think it would make a good location for a grocery store with a gas station.
State your name and address again, please.
Sarah Hopper.
Sarah.
And address, do you want my Rogers address?
Yeah.
Or 18008 Hopper Lane. And we're the applicant for this, and we think it would make a great location for a grocery store with a gas station. You guys have any questions?
No questions?
Any questions?
No. Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor of this project?
It's me again. Seth, Jeffrey, and it's 633 South Country Club. So we are the adjacent property owner, and we have no problem. In fact, we're completely in favor of Harps going in here. The only condition that we see an issue with, which will probably be in the next meeting, I understand, but the facing of the building is one of the things that is concerning. It would, the site plan that has been presented to us so far would face the building towards the private drive that you see above. And that's a little concerning because of the 4,000 car count with our additional of 300 to 500 cars per day. There's a concern on our trustees and board of directors that may be too much traffic for the private drive. Other than that, we are very much in favor of this entirety.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor of? Anyone to speak in opposition of this project? Okay. There being none, we'll bring back into commission.
A question based on his comment, but it may be for the applicant. Did they plan on putting some type of drive in the rear to access, like the big trucks that may be delivering? I mean, I know that have to do specifically with the zoning, but what was
Is that part of this, or is that part of next month for like with their site plan and what they're doing here?
I mean, it is the coordination of drives. Those elements, really, none of that can be conditioned with the rezone. So this particular application, it's really to determine whether or not that particular use is appropriate to the site. I would anticipate that likely they'll have multiple driveway accesses from various points on the site.
That would all be managed when it goes through site review with the city. So,
correct.
More questions or discussion? I'll take a motion.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second that.
Who made the motion? Can we have a motion?
Rebecca made the motion.
Made the motion.
Okay.
And Alexander seconded.
Okay, and you second, okay. Right. Our next item.
Do we need to vote?
Yes, you threw me off there. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Okay. Our next item is a request to rezone a half acre located at northwest corner of the intersection of Dave Ward Drive and South Country Club Road from O1 to C2.
James, do you feel like you've already presented on this one?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to check and make sure.
Okay. Anyone here to speak in favor of this request?
we have to have someone on this one too, since
Yes.
they're
I
congruent.
mean,
So we do have to have someone stand out then.
Sarah Hopper, 18008 Hopper Lane. And this is part of the request that you guys just voted on. It's
Two
just another
items, yeah.
piece of the property.
It's just a formality. We have to
Yeah.
have someone.
Okay, could have lumped it together. So no. Okay. Anyone speak in opposition? Okay. Commissioners,
I make a move to approve.
Second.
Alexander and Ethan, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. That ends the public hearing portion of our meeting. And we'll move on to our announcements and additional business. The first being our proposed meeting calendar for 2023.
One thing I'll say, I think one of our commissioners noted a desire to see the March meeting date move back a week, as well as the November meeting date move back a week due to conflicts with fall break and spring break. If you all otherwise are okay with the calendar, we can make those adjustments and make according adjustments in application deadlines, kind of as it flows back to make sure that they're appropriate.
Question, is that going to March the 27th or March the 13th?
So that would be March 13th and November 13th.
So your meeting's going to be 2 weeks apart
Mm-hmm.
from February to March.
And we don't
We need a motion on that?
need to, I'm sorry, this is a question, not a statement. Do we need to change those dates and move accordingly, or are you saying approve this as is and we'll change it on the back end?
No. I'm saying if you approve it with those changes and then enable staff to
Oh,
basically
Okay.
the
So
left four columns will make
Shift.
appropriate changes.
okay, understood.
Motion to approve with those changes.
Second. I said it'd be a long meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? I know. Okay, our next item is a discussion to make proposed changes to zoning code, section 530. Accessory.
Wait, officers first, right?
Oh,
It's on, no,
follow
it's
it.
on the right. It was on the right side. Yeah, right
Left
there.
side. Right side.
On the right side, yeah.
The other right, okay. Okay, I guess it's time for us to elect officers for 2023
So you,
Any nominations?
nominations.
Nominate Rebecca to be chair.
nominate Laura to be vice chair.
And I will nominate Drew for secretary.
I'll second that.
Okay. Second.
Second.
Can I?
You could just have one nomination that nominates it as a slate with
There you go.
Rebecca Fincher as chair, Laura King as vice chair, and Drew Spurgers as
Can,
secretary.
can we pause there for just a second? I am happy to do that role if nobody else wants it, but if somebody else would like it, let me know and I'll nominate you now.
It's yours.
Ethan, you look excited about it.
I'm excited that he's going to be second.
You actually don't have to take minutes, so
Do I?
you don't have to take minutes.
Oh, that's the
That's
reason
way
I
more
nominated
attractive,
him.
yeah.
I thought because that was in the job description. I thought that'd be a great.
We certainly.
Beth and Lauren are like, we don't trust Bell. We're doing it ourselves.
Here you go. You can have
I'm just kidding, Drew. That is not why I nominated you.
I make a motion to make Rebecca Fincher chair, Laura King vice chair, and Drew Spurgers secretary.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes.
Lord,
Congratulations.
this was way easier than I thought.
It's like jumping up there. Okay, now, proposed changes to zoning code, section 530, addressing accessory dwelling units. That was pretty interesting. I like this. I think I'm going to put one in my backyard.
Yes. So you all are benefiting from me having had to read the code very, very intensely in the last month and seeing some things that really, really needed to be changed. One thing that has occurred this year, we have realized there's a provision in the code for caretaker residences. In some ways, created a little bit of a loophole for accessory dwelling units. And so there's been several accessory dwelling units that have been permitted. What I mean by an accessory dwelling unit is that there's a primary structure and then you have a secondary structure. This has become very popular across the country as housing affordability has become a greater issue. One of the things that's beneficial about it is it's sort of an invisible form of density because it does not change the character of the primary structure. You have an additional structure that is built. So a lot of times if somebody owns a house, they can have something that is there to provide for, let's say, an aging parent or someone. It's maybe something they could rent out to a college student. This was a very common in historic neighborhoods and kind of got phased out when zoning with single family, very strict single family zoning came into being in the 30s, 40s, and 50s and 60s. And a lot of these really, you didn't see these anymore. So what these provisions would do is replace that existing loophole that exists for caretaker homes and then allow accessory dwelling units. Essentially, anywhere that there is an existing single-family home, one could put in an accessory dwelling unit provided that they met all of these criteria. So the criteria would be that the property owner maintain permanent residence in either the principal structure or the accessory structure. This would be demonstrated by a homestead tax credit. Or the occupancy of the ADU, as they're often called, would be limited to one family with no more than one bedroom. There would only be one accessory dwelling unit allowed per principal structure. The ADU would be less than 40% of the size of the principal structure or 1,000 square feet in gross floor area, whichever is less. So let's say that you had a 2,000 square foot home. So that would be about an 800 square foot accessory dwelling unit in that instance. It would also be required to be at least 400 square feet. It would be placed in the rear yard behind the principal structure. So that, again, this is one of the things that kind of makes it a version of invisible density, because it's there that you don't really notice it. It would have to complement and match the facade materials of the principal structure. They would have to provide a single parking space. Existing on-street parking or the existing parking could be used to meet this. If you don't, and when we calculate that typically if you have a 40 or 50-foot driveway that's 20 feet wide, you're going to more than meet the requirement in that instance. There'd be a requirement for separately metered utilities. That is intended to allow us to determine with Comic Warp who is basically occupying the residences, so that we can verify that a requirement. And then an existing accessory structure could be converted into a accessory dwelling unit in the future as well. So,
Is there any lot size requirements on this?
no.
So, I mean,
But now it would have to otherwise meet the
You have to meet the setback requirements,
yeah,
correct?
it would have to meet the setback requirements essentially for an accessory structure. So it would have, and it would additionally have to meet the lot coverage requirements. So there's a 30% lot coverage requirement in most of the residential zones. So there are, although there's not a specified parameter on these with lot size, there are things that kind of back you into it. Yeah.
okay.
And these are colloquial. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Letitia.
No,
Didn't
you're
mean to
fine.
interrupt you.
I was just gonna ask, since these seem to have to be in the rear, what if, and this may or may not be within, but if they wanted to split it into two separate parcels at a later time, I think the size of the lot would matter from the beginning, wouldn't it? Would they be aware of
So
that?
essentially, yeah, I doubt that they would be able to split them in the future, because
Okay, because
there
of the
are
size.
there are frontage requirements.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are colloquially tiny houses or granny pods, correct? That's what we're talking about here.
Not in the sense that oftentimes when you see it on HGTV, it's a little house on wheels. This would be constructed from the ground up, meeting the building code requirements.
That was my next question. So something on wheels, still not permissible.
Still not permissible.
Okay.
No.
Make this change tonight, is there any type of, what process has this gone through?
So this is kind of y'all's initial
Just
review process. If there's general head nods, then we'll set a public hearing for this, put it out basically on the city website,
Do all the things.
and then solicit public input, and then next month take it up for consideration at that point.
So you said you wanted head
Propose we
nods.
Move ahead with it.
Head nods, yeah. This is general direction. So. Right. The next code change deals with proposed changes to existing sections 616. So one of the things I read in there related to hospital services, we've got 3 pieces of language that are in there that have the city has never followed ever, and so that would be one that I would respectfully request that we just end up removing, because they could be sort of an issue if we were to enforce them going forward. To be honest with you, so
We'll go along with that.
right?
Same thing on the process for that?
Correct.
Okay, just.
Yeah. Yeah, take it out of the code.
So we hear James is looking for a less restrictive government this evening, right?
You know, typically my general philosophy is most times if I'm going to add something, I try to subtract something as well.
You want head nods here as well?
Head nods, yes, correct. Yep. The final piece deals with the Board of Zoning Adjustment. Back in 2011, there was an ordinance change, which the intent of the ordinance change was good. Prior to that time, there was the Planning Commission and the Board of Adjustment. And the membership of those 2 boards were separate. So the city had a really hard time finding good members for the Board of Adjustment. And so they said, well, we'll combine the 2. This is essentially allowed for in the Arkansas Code Annotated Section 1456-416. But the way that that ordinance was passed, it was somewhat improper. It's meant to allow the Planning Commission to sit as the Board of Adjustment rather than replace the Board of Adjustment. So technically, there should still be a Board of Adjustment meeting and a Planning Commission meeting. So when you hear variances, the Planning Commission membership is the membership of the Board of Adjustment. So this code amendment is really intended to fix that particular issue, and then also get rid of some of the reasons that we have variances come to y'all in the first place. So the other big things here, it lines out administrative review appeals. The big change with that is providing some more procedural elements with that, such as if there's going to be an administrative appeal, then if the staff writes a letter giving the person that's appealing it, giving them a chance to review that, so that there's kind of a both sides type thing with that. Additionally, extending the review period. Currently, it's only 10 days from the time that a decision is made or an interpretation is made. This would extend it to 30 days to be consistent with other forms of appeals that currently exist. That's the big thing with that section. For variances and special exceptions, there's some additions of standards of approval that aren't currently in there. Those would be added as well. There's a requirement in here that the agenda of the Board of Zoning Adjustment meeting be advertised in the paper. That's in compliance with state law. That's not something we're currently doing. That's something that we'll have to start doing after this code amendment. So we're not going to. We might not be following strict compliance with the law as it regards to that currently. But the one that I really want to bring to your attention is primarily Section 705, and this would be something that is new. It would be a provision to allow for administrative waivers. I don't have in here the second type of waiver because I started thinking about this and it's like, man, 90% of the variances that we get that we approve, if I could just write something that would address that, then we would have very few variance requests. Unfortunately, most of the variance requests that come before y'all, we are recommending approval for, and it's not necessarily always something I would recommend. Typically, with most variances, my rule is always follow Nancy Reagan, just say no, because most variance requests aren't necessarily warranted. So the creation of this administrative waiver provides for sort of a different way. So with the administrative waiver, this would allow us to grant basically a 10% waiver on a numerical standard. So let's say somebody went out and built a house and the setback is 25 feet, except they built it at 24 feet instead of 25 feet. Now, normally in that situation, when the title company catches it, they shoot it to us and we're like, yeah, it couldn't be rebuilt like that. It would have to be built at 25 feet. So then the title company doesn't like it. It causes an issue for the bank. It causes this whole cascade of issues that flow on from that then necessitate the granting of a variance, when really it's a relatively minor issue. So what this code provision would say is if it's within that 10% rule, if it's 25 feet, so within 2.5 feet, staff can just go ahead and say, yes, we grant administrative waiver on this, and it's okay, it's allowed, it's legal. So no need for a variance. Title company's okay, bank's okay, everybody's good. We can close the loan, close the sale, we're all good. The second type would be in instances we have happened quite a lot where someone comes in and they're wanting to split an existing property, but the house has been built in such a way that it does not conform with setbacks. And so then we have to come get a variance to approve sort of the setbacks for the house to enable them to split the lots. The second type of administrative waiver would basically allow us to grant a waiver for something that is an existing structure for the purposes of plat approval or building permit approval, when it wouldn't apply to redevelopment of the site. So if it's an existing house, it's built at 15 feet, there's plenty of room to accommodate for it to be rebuilt at the appropriate setbacks. The applicant consents to that. This would allow us to go in, grant a waiver, let them get their replat filed and sort of go on in the future. So.
Question.
Hmm?
On the waiver, if there was an instance where staff did not want to grant the approval of a variance that was within the 10%, that would still potentially come to us?
Correct.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. This provides staff the ability to, it does not require staff to. Basically, if staff, the condition is if it's, consistent with in the public welfare. So if we feel like this is providing a public good, that it's not going to be detrimental to adjacent property, those types of things, that we would have the ability to grant that.
But in theory, in site review for building permit, that should be caught if it's not going to meet the correct setback.
Correct.
It would just be somebody measured wrong, put the house in the wrong spot.
Yeah. Well, this a great example. A great example of this is not necessarily of this, but there have been times where things haven't been caught. We just noticed a subdivision the other day where the entire subdivision, it was platted in 1958. The entire subdivision has 25-foot setbacks, 25-foot building lines. The entirety of the subdivision is built with 15-foot front setbacks.
What subdivision?
I don't remember, but it's yeah. But based on the
He
age,
blocked-
you
he
can
blocked it out.
imagine where it is. And so those types of issues have occurred over time. Yes, it should be caught. I would 100% agree with you. Yes, those issues should be caught. But historically, they haven't always been.
It's a set and go. That's why we pay permit review fees.
Yes.
Our plans can be reviewed and approved.
Yes,
So it should be caught by the city.
they should be. Yep.
So I have a question that kind of goes in with Adam. So let's say you guys don't, you say no on the waiver and they want to appeal to the commission. Are they going to have to pay another application fee?
So for administrative waivers, there is no application fee. So they would have to apply for a variance in that situation.
Nods?
Anytime we can give the staff the ability to
I think this
exercise
would
their expertise, we are making good judgment
this
decisions.
it would be certainly something that I think would help a lot of property owners and make things a little bit smoother. Yeah. Yep.
So
Definitely not excessive, so, a couple of feet. Would be fine.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. There being no further business, I'll entertain a motion to.
I do have a
Well,
question.
you do have a question?
Yes. So James, can you tell us, as we have one more meeting left for the end of the year, and Ray's over here dancing because she's done her lifelong service. What's the plan for opening up for applications and that sort of thing?
Yes. So the city opened, I think, the application window in the beginning of October, closed at the end of October. The nomination process is being handled differently this year. So all those nominations, the review of nominations and appointments will be handled by the mayor's office.
Okay, perfect.
Well, know the results of that process.
I think once staff finds out, we can inform y'all. It'll go on to the agenda for planning commission confirmation. So those appointments made by the mayor then are confirmed by city council.
So
Out of the process.
Exactly.
We don't need to be lined up.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it.
I still have a, so I had sent this question to James earlier in like, how did that process get changed? Because when we came on, like it was a whole thing and you do interviews and we nominated within our body, we're all kind of independent people here. Now it's coming through the mayor's office, which I can see pros and cons of both, but how does that just get changed and like we have no idea that it's happening?
Well, I mean, the mayor's office the mayor's office informed the chairs. It's basically for all boards and commissions that this has been a change. So it's not just the planning commission, it is for all boards and commissions and advisory boards.
So there was no formal process by which that had to happen. They were able to change that and.
Correct. Yeah.
No, it closed October the 31st.
Yes.
So anyone can apply.
Still available online.
Yeah.
That's right, Alexander.
So anyone in the community can apply, and then the mayor's office chooses who they place in these seats, and then the council has to approve them.
Correct. Yeah. And that, I mean, I'll say this. I know that probably seems maybe somewhat strange from the Conway
Public
perspective. That is the way most cities work.
That's how it works federally as well.
Yeah.
You know.
Was it broken though?
Adam, don't look at me. That'll leave someone else to determine that.
Make a motion to end the meeting.
Wait. Here's my question. I'm not trying to be divisive here. It's fine that it changed. We just should have understood the process because it doesn't feel transparent the way it's been done. Is my issue.
I can understand that.
Did I hear you say that were you notified? Did someone tell you at least? Okay, so
No.
yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree with Laura that it's easy to be a critic, and so my comment is not to be a critic. It would have been nice to have understood that there was going to be a shift, not because I disagree with the shift, but just so that I could be informed as well.
I mean, if Ray didn't get I got the email that had
You got an email. It just okay, got it.
that had the chair on there, but it may not have gotten through to her.
But the intent then was to share with the chair, I guess is what you're saying. The intent
Yes,
from the mayor's
yeah.
office was to share with the chair, I guess assuming that if maybe your work email blocked, I don't know, let's just assume it didn't go through. I don't know. But the intent was then for the chair to share with us. So like there was intent that was good, I guess is what I hear you saying.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
The mayor's office notified all of the boards, the chairs of all the boards and commissions.
Yeah, I'm with Laura on this of like no disagreement with the end product. Just would have been nice to, I mean, if the point of the planning commission is to be a body of citizens who, approve, inform, et cetera, would have been nice to
Still
know.
be appointed by ward like we were, like you have to live in this certain area, or if you don't get enough people from that, it's just we like this one, we like this one, we don't like this. I mean, how does that work?
I would refer those questions to the mayor's office, honestly. And staff is not involved in the process.
Thanks for the transparency.
Yeah, we appreciate it. I did not know or
That wasn't sarcasm. That was sincere.
Okay.
Do you get that
Okay,
motion,
we have a
Alexander?
motion to.
I'll make a motion again.
To adjourn. Go. All in favor?
Aye.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Camera off.
Huh?
Somebody have
Question.